Okay, so we've introduced everyone in the room. Glad to see everyone is here. Every time I see all your faces in the room and online, I feel safer and I feel grateful that I get to be here. And oftentimes joy. I feel joy today. So thank you, everybody. And so we've had been talking about peace, and I got to speak a little last Monday. So as I was thinking through the week, I really wanted to tell this story. So I thought the best place for me this week to go to start my meditation on peace would be to find materials from the Imperial War Museum of the United Kingdom. And so I went there and didn't do much research, but I did do some, and I learned a lot. So I want to read about a story that had happened there. But before we get started, everyone get comfortable. And again, a lot of this reading is from the Imperial War Museum, just so you know where I got it from. But I cut it up so we can fit it into a meditation. So take a deep breath in. Exhale fully. Deep breath in. Exhale fully. Deep breath in. Exhale fully. And let's just take the next 30 seconds to bathe in the moment, to bathe in the here and now. From the Imperial War Museum, I'm going to be reading about World War I, Christmas 1914. In the midst of a brutal total war, how did this momentary peace come about? What impact did it have in the course of the First World War, and why did it never happen again? Marmaduke Walkington says, "We were in the front lines. We were about 300 yards from the Germans, and we had, I think, on Christmas Eve, we'd been singing carols and this, that, and the other, and the Germans had been doing the same, and we'd been shouting to each other, sometimes rude remarks, more often just joking remarks. And eventually a German said, 'Tomorrow, you no shoot, we no shoot.' At the start of the war, many believed it would be all over by Christmas. However, by December that year, it was obvious that this was not the case, and thousands of families and soldiers were facing a Christmas of separation, grief, and hardship." Quote from Anthony Richards. So for those soldiers who were in the trenches over winter 1914, the conditions would have gradually gotten worse and worse. You got a lot of rain, a lot of frost, and the general living conditions would have been terrible. End quote. But the British troops were not alone. In the trenches opposite theirs, sometimes only 30 yards away across a strip of no man's land, were German soldiers in the exact same situation. Quote Anthony Richards. "There is lots of opportunity for each side to communicate with each other, and this was a regular thing which happened right from the start of trench warfare. But communication would often be in the form of soldiers from one side shouting over insults to those in the other trenches. But what was interesting at Christmas is that both sides actually started to communicate in more friendly terms. It really began with the Germans singing Christmas carols and setting up Christmas trees on top of their parapets. And so they came to very much empathize with one another. End quote. Quote, Mr. Rickner. I remember very well Christmas. I remember the Christmas day when the Germans and the French soldiers left their trenches, went to the barbed wire between them with champagne and cigarettes in their hands, and had feelings of fraternization and shouted they wanted to finish the war. And that lasted only 2 days, 1.5 really. And then strict order came that no fraternization was allowed, and we had to stay back in our trenches. Quote Ernie Williams. And we shared cigarettes and goodies with the Germans, and then from somewhere, somehow, this football appeared. Interviewer. Was it a proper football? Ernie Williams. It was a proper football, but we didn't form a team. It wasn't a team game in any sense of the word. You know, it was a kickabout. Everybody was having a go. It came from their side. It wasn't from our side where the ball came. Interviewer. How many people were taking part, do you think? Ernie Williams. Well, I should think there'd be at least a couple hundred in the game. Interviewer. Did you kick the ball? Ernie Williams. Oh, yes, I had to go at it. I was pretty good back then, at 19. Quote, Clifford Lane. After a few moments, there were lighted objects raised above the German parapets. The Germans were shouting over to our trench. There's no doubt about that at all. And before we could take any action or do anything, we were ordered to open rapid fire, you see, which we did. The Germans did not reply to our rapid fire. They simply carried on with their celebrations and were having a very fine time indeed. They certainly were not going to do it any more. They thought that we were idiots, I suppose, which we were. Not us, but the command, you see. Quote, Anthony Richards. The way the trench warfare was organized in the First World War, each sector was very distinctive, and so you wouldn't necessarily know what was happening in the sector next door to you. And you do get stories of one area of the front where they were experiencing a truce, but then suddenly they got fired on by troops in the next sector who didn't realize what was happening. John Wettifer Maxfield. My father is delighted to have a letter giving such a description of events, and he sent it to them up the Daily Telegraph. I got into a frightful rocket. It showed up that it must have been me who wrote it, and he got hold of me and gave me an awful dressing down for daring to write to the press. But of course I didn't. My old man wrote to the press. The Christmas truce would become to be remembered as something of a blip in the regular conduct of the war. It conflicted with the patriotic aggression required by both sides. It also served to highlight the great contrast between war and religion. How can you fight a war of aggression while also celebrating Christmas, the traditional time for peace and goodwill? For those reasons, the Christmas truce was increasingly seen as an unimportant and awkward to fit into the standard narrative of the First World War. Quote Anthony Richards. You never get anything like the Christmas truce happening again. And over time, not only is it seen as an anomaly, but almost as a myth. And it gets to the point where people are actually doubting whether it happened in the first place, which continues right up to this day. So there's still a lot of confusion about whether there was a football match played and things like this. Okay, let's take just a few moments to think about the quotes we had heard. Follow our breath. And I'll put this in context, and then we can do a little chanting. So in Christmas of 1914, mainly British and German, but also some French troops decided to have a truce and celebrate Christmas together. They exchanged tobacco, food, caps, buttons. They sang Christmas carols with each other. They played soccer. They drank together. And in some places this lasted till New Year's, but in most places it ended after a day or two. When the command of the armies on both sides heard about the Christmas truce, they panicked. They did not believe that them being able to talk with each other and enjoy each other's company would help at all with the angry patriotism. It's almost an exact quote, the angry patriotism that they were needing to continue the war. By the time 1915 and 1916 came around, World War I was so horrific that no one wanted to talk to people on the other side. They were bitter, they hated them, and they wanted to get even for all the friends and all the things they had lost on both sides. But for a while, on one Christmas Eve, they were able to talk and just drop the trappings of war for just a few days. And it was beautiful. And it shows that that potential is always there in all of us, in our personal lives and in our lives as nations and societies. I want to lead a chant, and I will begin, and people can jump in whenever they want to, or you don't have to. You can just follow your breath. The chant I am doing is mainly used in Hinduism, but I think it applies to every practice, every ethical and spiritual practice on earth. And it's just Shanti Om. Shanti, I'm sure you all know, means peace. Om Shanti Om Shanti Om Shanti Om 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 Om Shanti Om Shanti Om, Shanti Om. Om Shanti Om, 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 Shanti Om, Shanti Om. Spend a minute just enjoying the peace. Namaste. Okay. Prepare for dedication of merit. May we be happy and peaceful. May we be healthy and strong. May we be safe and protected. May we live with ease. Namaste.